Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to a very special edition of the Nurturing Fathers podcast and video session that we're doing today. I am Corey Perlman, the younger son of my lovely and beloved father, Mark Perlman. Papo man, how you doing, buddy?
Doing great. Happy to be here with you, Corey, and happy to share this information with the audience that's out there celebrating the new, improved second edition Nurturing Fathers program.
Man, it's been Jess and I, my wife, she said, gosh, when I heard you say 2 years, I thought, because she knows that I'm like my daughter, I exaggerate, I guess. I tell like Whopper stories. And she thought I was telling another Whopper story. And and then she realized that it really has been about 2 years, hasn't it?
And the 2 years were a whopper. It was a whole lot more work than I intended. And we had a team with Corey's wife involved, my wife involved, Kate and Jessica, and others that participated in every aspect of this, from its look and design to the content and improvements and changes that we've made. And I'm very excited to share it with you all.
I am too, man. Like the burning image I have in my head between the then and now is the classic example when I was reading through it with you and I noticed the cassette tape that was on the 1990s version of the program. And it just, I think we looked at each other when we saw it and we said, it might be time for a quick update here, So here we are, and I'm super excited to share it. I do want to say just a couple of quick things. As you said, this took a team effort. So big thank you to Kate, your wife, my stepmom, on just really driving the ship and spending endless hours throughout the night and into the morning, working with two teams we had going on this. And then, of course, Wendy, who did an amazing job of the graphic work and really the illustrations and all that. And the other thing I want to say about Kate is she did an amazing job of picking the imagery, which is so important with this program. And something that was said to me, Dad, in one of the prison sessions is an African-American gentleman came up to me and said, I really don't feel like the book shows the diversity that this room and all the other rooms show. And I said, we're going to work on that. And we did. And I'm really proud of it. The effort she put in specifically on the imagery. Excuse me. And my wife, as you said, did an excellent job of hunting through all the little, spaces and double spaces and capital T's and minimal I's and all these kind of things to get all the grammatical stuff. And she, I would literally find her in the wee hours of the morning scouring through the pages. So it really was a team effort. And then you, Dad, as I know as an author, it is not an easy thing to have people going through your body of work and asking to make changes. And you've been just an absolute pleasure to work with. You've been on board the whole time, and you've made a better product that's going to live so many years beyond where we are now. And I couldn't be prouder of you, and I couldn't be prouder of the program that we're about to unveil.
Thank you, Corey. It's delightful to have you as part of it.
So let's do it, man. So I have the old version just to remind everybody what it once looked like. And again, as everybody knows, this program's magic. It was magic, and it always will be magic. It's transformational. It has changed lives, and 95% of the material that's inside this still exists. So we made very little changes inside. It was really, and in the content, it was really about, the skin of it and everything. But here's what the workbook looked like. Here's what the facilitator manual looked like. You can see I've had it widely used over the last few years and such, but this was where we were. And now I show you all where we are headed. The beautiful new modernized 2.0 Nurturing Fathers programs. You've got the workbook over here for the fathers and the facilitator manual over here for the facilitators. New and improved, beautiful modern design, new logo, new colors, new fonts, and some really fun, awesome material inside that we're going to go through. So You ready to do it, Pop? You ready to show
I
everybody
am ready to
what's
rock and roll,
involved?
Corey Perlman.
Yeah, man. Should be very proud of these things. They're absolutely stunning and beautiful.
Yes, it certainly took a village, didn't it?
It certainly did. All right, so I'm going to share my screen here, and what Dad's going to do for those of you, thank you, that are going to be using this moving forward is he's going to show you all the nuances within the program that have changed, so that you know what's been updated, and then of course what's remained the same.
Now, it
So here we
would
go.
be useful if you had a copy of the new facilitator manual in front of you. If you don't, you can still benefit and listen to this presentation. It will be helpful. But if you have that new facilitator manual, take it out and highlight the very same things that you will see highlighted on your screen here. Because what we're going to show you in highlights is really what is new on the inside of the Nurturing Fathers program. And some of this is data and statistics. Some of these are new perspectives that came with time and experience. There are some new facilitation aids, and there is some new information for the facilitators that I think will give them more options and opportunities in the facilitation. As Corey said, I think the reassuring part is the curriculum did work so well. The feedback from the field is don't change something that has served our needs and the needs of the fathers. So it is like 95% what it has always been, but I think it's a new and improved version.
Amen.
And that's what I'm going to share with you here.
Now, Dad, can you see the program perfectly there?
See the book perfectly.
Okay.
And
So
I
we'll
think,
go to the first page here that we've got some changes here. So I'm going to page 6.
okay, I will do the same, and I will take you almost page by page through what is new here so that you can mark what is new and be clear about what you're looking at. The beginning sections and the table of contents take 3 pages. The symbol key has changed some in that we have more symbols for the facilitator. We have a total of 6. And those are just graphics that appear on the page that show you when an assignment is made, when to use a whiteboard or flip chart, when
What
there
page are
are
you
the,
on, Dad?
I'm sorry. Well,
What
I'm
page?
on page Roman numeral IX 9.
Okay, there you go. Sorry.
Yeah, so these are the new symbols that guide the facilitator what the group activity is. So you don't have to read all the words on the page. You can just look at these and know that the 4th one down is split into small groups. 5th one down is audio digital source. And the last one there are home activities. So those will be useful for the facilitation, new and expanded. The list of posters on page X10 is expanded. These are all in digital form. And I am happy to tell you that there will be no more tapes, as Corey was alluding to, no more CDs, which was the new and improved and is now gone by the wayside. You will be directed to a area on the web on our Nurturing Fathers website. And on that area, you will find all the digital aids for facilitators. That will include the posters expanded. That will include the forms for you to print out, and even the audio visualizations are on that site. And all you got to do is upload them to your computer, and they are yours to use. So the major change to the introductory section starts on page XV15. Method parenting, how parenting is learned, which is just a beautiful example of the new design, the icons that go with it. On the next page, page XV116 starts new information about building IQ and EQ. And this begins to define and highlight the importance of emotional intelligence for fathers teaching their children. And then the next page logically follows is research in childhood experiences, how childhood experiences affect growth and development. It's the newest in brain research that shows how experiences from childhood help shape the brain and the potential for the children as they grow into the future. Next page is adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, that I'm sure you're all familiar with. And that shows how traumatic childhood experiences affect the child, their growth and development right into adulthood. I'm happy to say that the Nurturing Fathers program now, and ever since it's been around 23 years, has always dealt with these issues that I just mentioned, including trauma. We just didn't use the exact verbiage that has come to use now. What this page says as highlighted is safe and stable and nurturing relationships can have a positive impact on a broad range of health problems and on the development of skills that will help children reach their full potential. And that's for Center for Disease and Prevention. And the following page is trauma-informed guidelines for NFP facilitators. That's page X1, X19. And that is just a few simple guidelines about trauma, and the gentlemen who come into your program, many of which have had one or more ACEs and traumatic experiences, and how we deal, respect, and address those. So the Nurturing Fathers program is built on these principles, always has been, to result in help and healing of trauma and avoid passing it on to our children. The rest of the introduction is exactly as it was. It's been reformatted, so it's got a new look, but the content is the same. It gets us to page 1 in the actual week 1 curriculum. I love that first picture there, 3 generations of fathers, in this case, African-American fathers. And as Corey said, I think the diversity represented by the program is as good in this book as it can be. And very proud of the actual diversity and the way it's portrayed here. On page 4 from week 1, fathering history, childbirth stories. We've sat around in a big circle for all these years, and the men have shared the stories of the pregnancy, the births, and what that it was all like to them. They will still do exactly that, but what we suggest is if there are 8 or fewer gentlemen in the room, you can still sit in that one circle and share. If there are more than 8, say 9 to whatever, 16, we suggest you break down into 4 small groups, 4 men or 5 men in each group, and share that in small groups. That's to avoid a very long sharing and eating up half of that first night's time if you have a group of 14 and you go around individually. So small groups of 4 each. On page 5, we have an addition to the ground rules. The ground rules remain the same with the addition to this. This is the Nurturing Fathers class. We will talk about ourselves as men, our fathering style, and how we plan on moving forward. So that sets the theme of we are here to learn as men to be the best fathers and nurturers we can be. We are not going to spend our time criticizing our ex-spouse. We're not going to spend the time complaining about DCF. All that I know is on the father's minds very often, but this is not really the place to spend a lot of time and address those needs. This is for learning and growth. Moving to the next section, which is page 16, we have on the bottom half of that page, Fathering the Little Boy Within, part 3, which is an additional part to what has always been there. And what this part asks the facilitator to do is to summarize all those parts of the introduction that I shared with you a few minutes ago, so that the fathers have a sense of understanding ACEs, research on brain development, the adverse childhood experiences, trauma-informed guidelines. Just take a 5-minute to summarize all of that appears in the father's workbook now and in your introduction to the facilitator manual. That way the fathers are familiar with those terms and those realities. On page 24, we add one to the home activities for that night, and it is choose one of the 6 areas of need and do something to nurture yourself in that need area this week. So what we are doing here is we're not only doing a homework assignment on that important area, 6 areas of need, but we're giving the father an ongoing practical opportunity to practice those things, to experience and experiment with those things, and deepen the learning. And you'll see in several sections, we have that ongoing practice of important concepts.
I
On
think it's
page,
just real quick, that a good time just to mention, I'll give you a chance to catch your breath, is the other change you made here about ending with a group huddle instead of a hug. And I think that was a good change. Obviously, depending upon, the environment that you're in, sometimes, the hug is great. And we've had great sessions where the men just end with a hug and it feels very natural. But in some cases, like in the incarceration settings and such, it doesn't work well. So we left some flexibility here and end with a group huddle as opposed to hug.
yeah, and I think it's going to evolve and change exactly the same way that the hug did. The change of words is really for not, the hug has a little bit of a connotation that made men uncomfortable. The huddle is extremely familiar. Athletes do it. They circle up, they put their arms around each other, and that's exactly what we'll do at the end of group every night. So we're just moving it, thanks Corey, to huddle instead of hug. On nurturing characteristics on page 30, we addressed a issue that is part of the new generation of men and women, younger generation, and that is the importance of gender to them on many levels. Now, it is such a complex issue. There are so many points of view that we could not deal with every aspect of LGBTQ and so on. But what we did do is give the men an opportunity on page 30 to discuss similarities between fathers and mothers in nurturing and parenting, and discuss perceived differences. Instead of me giving them a list to talk from of my perception, I have moved this to the group coming up with their own perceptions of similarities and differences and discuss those. If the facilitator's main role is to facilitate a good discussion, as always, and avoid conflict in judgment. Some of these perspectives may have a little bit of personal consequence and input and power, and that's fine, but we don't want to get argumentative. But we leave it to the group to tackle that on page 30. Moving to chapter 5, power over power 2, powering without fear or violence. One of my favorite chapters in the group. On page 37, you got a beautiful example of a old and familiar visual, but because of our new design and designer and the beautiful work that she did, fear and violence on the left column have a beautiful graphic that really gives you an emotional impact as well as intellectual. And on the right, fathering and nurturing fathering has a beautiful graphic. And I think that's just one example of how the graphics bring some of these subjects to life. And it's very, very nicely done by our graphic designer. On the next page, 38, we now refer to the father's ongoing plan as an action plan. And we have each member complete my nurturing father's action plan, and you will see it coming up in a number of weeks to follow, that we refer to it, we talk about it, and give him a lot of opportunity to learn and grow and see what's changed, what's working, what's not working. Again, power over power 2 on page 39 has a great visual in terms of what each looks like, the closed fist versus the open hand visual. On page 40, at the very bottom of the page, is a new poster. We have a half dozen or so new posters. This one is the digital poster of influence and control. And again, these all will be uploaded to your computer, as you can use them for each class and for each section here. On page 42, the home activities for this week, as I just mentioned, put into practice my nurturing father's action plan. So we're asking them to implement that and come back with some feedback about, on page 44, right toward the bottom, describe your challenges and attempts to overcome them. We know that some of these things may be changes Changes can be challenging. So what worked, what didn't, class is a perfect place to problem solve and keep the faith. On page 49, this is an interesting one. This is the one on chemical use questionnaire. This is a whole chapter devoted to barriers of nurturing fathers, anger, alcohol and drugs, and stress. This is one that deals with drinking and how many alcoholic drinks are appropriate a day without becoming a problem. There's a large new reference in that section to updated materials that I summarized there, Department of Agriculture guidelines. But this last one is from a coworker and somebody who knows the program well. The last check one, it reads like this: you are the, quote, keeper of your castle. If a guest is drinking excessively or using other illegal substances, you protect your children and family. So this expands this not only to behavior of the father and perhaps mother or primary adults, but if guests, visitors, other family members come and abuse these things, your job is to protect your children and family for what they're being exposed to. I appreciate that, and I'm happy to have that addition in here. Moving to the next page, page 50, no, it's B51. Home activities are greatly expanded from what they were here at the end of this chapter. So just to give you a quick rundown, home activities are going to be a plan for meeting my own needs, return to it and add anything new you've learned, reread Unconditional Love in the workbook, continue implementing your action plan, which we discussed before, and take some action this week to manage either your anger, irritation, annoyance, or stress. So in the context of this stress management and anger management week, we are asking them to take some action to manage and minimize their anger, irritation, annoyance, and stress. Week number 7, discipline, fun, and games. This week starts with a change in that we've moved communication skills. I think it was in week 9 to week 7 now. So it precedes discipline, and most importantly, it precedes the play shop. And this is practice communication skills, active listening. There's another new part that begins this chapter. It starts on the bottom and it's called Cornerstones. It has a new graphic on page 55, and it is, we built a solid foundation on which to address discipline. So discipline is not the big, complex, confusing, scary thing that it once was, because these cornerstones show us with the graphic that we have already developed a vision statement of the father I choose to be, how to relate to feelings, our own and other people's. The third cornerstone, self-nurturing, managing anger and stress. And the fourth cornerstone, fathering without violence and power 2. So that foundation is a beautiful graphic that shows the father that we are positioned to tackle discipline, which then starts on page 56. That section is virtually identical to the way it was. It's always worked so well, we haven't changed it. We can show you a few modifications on page 57. I broke discipline down as an overview into the 4 essential parts. These were a little muddied and combined before. I got them crystal clear now. And the 4 parts are the goals, the rules, what to do to win, desired behaviors, what not to do, the penalties or consequences, undesired behaviors. So those are 4 areas that simplify this. And then the rest of this is working through those definitions. On the bottom of that page, we have discipline team starts. It begins with the definition of discipline, teaching children to play by the rules. But below that, we've added a new piece. The second definition is how to get the desired behaviors out of our children most of the time. And I like that most of the time, because it ain't going to get perfect right away. But if you can get the desired behaviors out of them most of the time, your discipline is showing a definite effect as we would like it to be. On page 59, still discipline, encouraging teamwork and desired behaviors. We have a poster that is new, and that is the ways to encourage desired behavior. Praise, encouragement, positive touch, so on and so forth, is now rendered as a poster. This was a complex and detailed chapter, and I think the posters will help simplify it and give the fathers the visual aids for better learning. Again, there's a digital poster referenced on page 60, consequences, ways to discourage misbehavior, timeout, being grounded, loss of privilege, etc. On the bottom of that page is a new and clear section on choices and consequences, how we give the child a choice. And if they do A, then the consequence A. If they do B, then the consequence B, sort of rewards and punishment, if you will, but it shows the consequences effectively work. The following page 61 is where we have communication skills, listening and reflecting. It's exactly the same as we did before. You will have your guys partner up and practice this whole example of active listening, structured practice. They will have a discussion with one person, the sharer, and the second person, the listener. We move then to fun and games, planning the play shop. On page 64, and we're moving toward the last third of this now, stay with me. Two options for the play shop where there used to be one. Option one is exactly what you've always done. Invite the children, moms, grandma, whoever wants to come, have a nice play time. I'm sorry, not mom, grandma. This is just the dads. Invite your kids and have a play shop with your children. Option two is more with incarcerated fathers in mind, jails, prisons, and it's group members only. Children are not involved, which sometimes is the requirement to the institution. But here we give dads a way to experience the play, either how they played as a child or what they do with their kids and play, and what are the benefits and how good play activities work. And then we have other things for the dad for long distance activities they can do with their kid on the phone, with Zoom or whatever, to have nice, rich interactions and have some fun as well as teaching. On page 66, home activities, find opportunities to practice active listening, your children and spouse, and reread guidelines for nurturing play, because we're now moving into week 8, play shop, fun and games, exactly as we had it, except for option 2, where the children cannot be involved. Week 9, the introductory page 72, break into pairs and discuss observations and reflections of the play shop. It's a discussion between guys paired up, and then discuss the play shop experiencing while practice active listening. So they're also going to be using active listening in that exercise. Following that, something very proud of, thank my wife, Kate McPhillips, for adding this section. She was a pediatric occupational therapist, newly retired, worked with kids with developmental issues. This is her contribution. It's really a beautiful piece of work. And what we have here are ages and stages, child development, and teaching discipline. The way this is laid out is we have these tools for discipline. Each has 2 parts: what to teach for encouraging desired behaviors. Part 2, what to teach for discouraging undesirable behaviors. Right below that, we have each of these ages and stages will ask the question, what does this behavior need? Why does this behavior need a disciplinary response? What behavior do you want to see instead? Can you encourage the desirable behavior? Can you discourage the undesirable behavior? So each section is broken up into an ages and stages description that begins with the task, what the child needs to learn at this stage of development. I think we have 5 stages here. I'm looking at the age 6 to 12 stage, middle school and elementary. So what is the task of that age? And then second piece is what to teach. What does the elementary, middle school, what does the learning and growth look like for that particular stage? So we go through this in the class. They discuss each one with a certain context. And this is a wonderful addition. It appears fully in the Facilitator manual and the Father's workbook. On page 78, did you notice any differences in how your sons or daughters related and played in the play shop? Once again, we're opening up the gender question just to ask the fathers to discuss any differences that they may have observed during the play shop. Moving right along here, getting close to ending time. On page 82, on the top, it said digital posters for teaching values and encourage value-based behavior. That's new. On home activities here, week 9, find new opportunities to use age-appropriate discipline with each of your children. Record the results. So this is, they're putting the ages and stages piece into practice, and write any changes you wish to make or things you would like to do more of. That's the father himself. Week 10, nurturing relationships between spouse, co-parent. We asked them the results they noticed when practicing and teaching discipline, what worked, what didn't, and how can we improve that. On the next page, we have the familiar list of characteristics of effective teamwork. Good communication, trust, reliability, that's unchanged. But we have added to it on the bottom of that page is that each group member, ask group members to turn to the characteristics of effective teamwork and rate themselves on each of these qualities: poor, medium, excellent. So good communication, rate yourself, trust, reliability, and so on, so that the fathers have a chance to see where their strengths and weaknesses are, and then discuss in small groups what that looks like. And clearly the weaknesses are the areas that we would pay attention to while supporting the strengths. Going through this, we have conflict resolution. It's exactly the same. Some nice new graphics. We got cooperative problem solving, and home activities end with a couple of homework pieces, and reflect on your current successes and challenges as a nurturing father. Practice, practice, practice. Group huddle. Week 11, time for work and fathering. We give 40 minutes to discussing the successes and challenges, and that's the piece that we also call assessing progress and troubleshooting. And that's a nice piece of time for just see what's working, what's not, and devote some special discussion and helpful tips and support to keep the father moving along. On page 97, when he does his father's job description, duties and responsibilities, 3 different age groups, we have added, consider the ages and stages of child development in guiding this discussion. How a father can use the developmental stages described to inform him about what his duties and responsibilities are. So that's a wonderful expansion of that whole piece. Page 99, in a box in the middle of that page, it is important to keep ourselves to continue to focus on fathering as we move forward. And the hint that my colleague mentioned here is a great way to do this. Set a reminder on your phone or calendar to remember to focus on fathering, so that every time the group would have met on whatever given week, set your clock or calendar to that time and remind yourself to focus on fathering. Go back to the workbook, keep that growth going. Important reminder for the facilitator is bring copies of the AAPI post-test to the next meeting. We have moved all evaluations to week 12, and the AAPI needs to be there for the dads to complete. And on week 12 here, we will receive and give feedback about what nurturing fathers meant to each participant. So the beginning of this week, we asked them to discuss what they've written in their work with commitment to my family, the father I choose to be. That will be his final graduation statement, but we give him an opportunity to participate in a small group and do a practice run, see how it sounds, get a little bit of feedback, and if he needs to change anything, sharpen it, do whatever, that's an opportunity to just get a little input. And then we move on page 106 to the group and individual feedback. That's exactly what we did on week 13, but instead of asking the moms and kids to leave, on week 12, we have the fathers do it as the last activity for their week 12, just previous to the nurturing fathers visualization. how we close that out. So the giving and receiving feedback and the AAPI is in week 12. That leaves work week 13 exactly as it's always been, except the moms and dads and skids come together with the father, stay together, and leave together. There's no more of the work afterward where the moms and kids have to leave. That's now all been moved to week 12. So the purity of the feedback, social time, and reading The Father I Choose to Be, all right here on week 13. I want to just give a reminder, as it says here on week 112, the last week in the book, is please remember that you want the fathers to stay connected and mention resources such as the website, nurturingfathers.com, facebook.com/nurturingfathers, and very importantly, nurturingfathers.com/podcast. There's a wealth of discussions between Corey and I on those podcast channels. Thank you. That was a mouthful.
That was great. That was perfect, man.
Catch my breath again here, Corey.
Okay. Good job, Papa. Yeah, man. I mean, some of the additions are absolutely amazing. And I really appreciate you applying some of those ones that some of us from the field have talked about, such as the inside the prison, the inability to be able to bring, the kids in and such. And so now we have just more flexibility in the program, which is just super cool. So I'm super excited to use the program moving forward. And as Dad said, this will be on YouTube. This will be on our podcast. This will also post it on Facebook. If you are a facilitator, we also have a group email that we send stuff out through Google Groups. So feel free to email my dad or myself, and we'll put that in the show notes so that you have that. And you can get on that list as well, so we can give you updates that way. So we got all kinds of digital ways to stay connected with you.
The new order form can be found on our website, nurturingfathers.com, as well as pictures of the new books and information. So if you want to share that with anybody, feel free. If you want to share this half-hour introductory video, please do. Fantastic.
Well, Dad, I appreciate it, man. I know that was just a labor of love. And so good job. You did great. And I'm just super excited about the future of the Nurturing Fathers program. So
thank you. And thank you all who watched this for being part of this. We couldn't have done it without you. Truthfully, it's you who out there in the field that deal with the fathers, make a difference in their lives. And the growth and success could only have happened with your help and dedication.
Amen. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day, and we'll see you next time.